4 o'clock here on this Monday. Hi, South Florida. I'm Eric Yetz.
And I'm JC Burge. We're on earlier than usual. We've been tracking Tropical Storm Eta since last night, bringing you all the details. But the good news is that storm has now moved over into the Gulf of Mexico. So as we pass things over to Julie, the question is, have we seen the worst of it, or are we still going to get pounded by some of these rain bands as it leaves?
Okay, well, that's a trick question, because yes, we're still going to get hit with these outer bands, and some of these outer bands could be giving us some tropical storm force winds, but the worst of the system occurred overnight. So if you're just joining us this morning, you can almost see it, the convection associated with the system starting to push off the coast, the west coast of Florida. But with that said, tropical storm force winds extend out from the center of the system over 200 miles, and we're definitely close enough for that. Not only that, we also have plenty of moisture. Remember, the system is very lopsided. We've talked about that for days. We talked about how you don't have to be in the actual center of the system to be feeling the worst of the effects, and that was proven fact here in South Florida. When you see the rainfall totals that fell across parts of Broward County, that meteorologist Brandon Orr is going to bring you, compared to what we saw over the Keys, the wind gusts that we have seen reported over the last 24 hours over Broward County and Miami-Dade compared to the Keys, you'll understand the story of why tropical systems are never the same. A tropical storm would typically have much of the activity near the center. That was not the case with this system, and we warned you about it, and you can continue to see it happen right in front of you. The convection well displaced from the center of circulation, and that continues. I brought you the latest advisory about 10 minutes ago. Winds of 65 miles per hour. It's moving west-northwest at 13 miles per hour. Noticing that the system is actually well to the north, almost due north of Key West. It is expected to continue to push away from South Florida. As it does so, we will see improvement in our weather pattern. National Hurricane Center did drop the hurricane watch and warning. In effect, that was allowed to be canceled. But we still have the possibility of tropical storm force winds, so a tropical storm warning is still in effect for the Keys, as well as Miami-Dade. Also, the flooding, plenty of flooding expected. We've got 3 bands we're watching, one thin band right over the middle Keys. We have more of a thicker band that's continuing over Miami and Broward, and really the worst of the weather right now headed right towards West Palm Beach. Look at those strong storms. Lots of activity in the way of severe weather could be possible for them. For us, we are drying out nicely, but a few showers returning across parts of northern Broward County, right over 441 into the Turnpike, Pompano Beach A1A. Look at the worst of the weather right now over US 27, Weston, Griffin, all the way in towards Pembroke Pines, Griffin Road all the way east into the Turnpike, and then we see it right over the beach as well. Hollywood Beach getting soaked. So the worst of the weather starting to move away from Weston. You can see that with our Doppler radar, but still steady downpours across parts of Aventura, Opa-locka, Medley, Hialeah, Miami Shores, downtown Miami, Miami Beach, dealing with some moderate to heavy rain. A nice little break for Doral as far as south as Kendall before more rain moves in. Again, those breaks won't last long. We've got a line of precipitation I'm watching right now for any type of severe weather, but it looks as though not enough convection to provide for any tornadic activity or even damaging winds. As we move to Homestead, though, we've got some moderate to heavy rain. The worst of the weather is the squall line of thunderstorms just offshore, headed towards West Palm Beach. All right, embedded in these showers and storms are some very strong winds, and even if you're not dealing with the rain, you're dealing with the wind. Look at this. Wind speeds anywhere between 16 to 26 miles per hour in Broward County. Miami-Dade, 13 to 28. Winds gusting in the 30s. Fort Lauderdale, Miami, gusting in the 20s for Marathon. We have 32-mile-per-hour wind gusts right now in Pembroke Pines, 37 in Pompano Beach, 24 in Kendall. So the new model run is out on the wind profile of this system. Noticing that as we go through the next few hours, we still have the possibility of tropical storm force winds. Again, extend out from the center about 300 miles. But by 1 o'clock this afternoon, notice that the tropical storm force winds will basically be by the lower Keys and moving into the Gulf of Mexico. So improvement in our weather forecast is expected, especially going into tonight. And it looks as though, as of the newest advisory, all the tropical storm storm surge watches and warnings were allowed to expire as well. So that's also good news. But the bad news is we've been dealing with high tide this morning, and I'm sure we're going to have more details on just how high the water levels have gotten. Not only that, we've had beach erosion. Our beaches have taken a beating. Let's see what all the storm reports are and what we're looking forward to a little later today with Brandon Orr.
Yeah, Julie. In fact, at the Hollywood Broadwalk, some of the waves have been coming up to the Broadwalk level. Yeah, that's a lot of beach to cover, but that's how high the water came, and it's starting to recede, starting to go down a little bit. We hit that high tide about an hour and a half ago, so it's on the way down. But it's still pretty high. We saw some saltwater flooding. We probably still have some in the canals because the wind direction is coming in like this. So it's funneling all that water up the canals, especially around Fort Lauderdale. And then you're adding all of this rain on top of the saltwater flooding, which probably just fills up the sewers more than anything else, and it can't drain anywhere. We saw 11 inches of rain. This is over towards Lauderhill, which has some of the worst flooding that we've seen, and it's not a surprise. They got the highest rainfall totals. Even towards the beach there in Fort Lauderdale, we picked up close to 5 inches of rain. Amounts have been less in Miami-Dade, especially this area around Cutler Bay over to Kendall. Got about, an inch or two of rain, that's it. Meanwhile, if you go to the north, we're pushing close to a half a foot of rain. If you get towards Doral and even over towards Miami Gardens, where they saw some higher rainfall totals, even to your south in Key Largo picked up 4.7 inches of rain estimated by radar. Now, the Keys saw the lowest amount of rain at least south of Key Largo. And that's because the center moved over you, and we really saw the thunderstorms kind of collapse around that center when it took on some dry air. And it took on that dry air last night, and those thunderstorms kind of collapsed. This is where the main threat has been with these outer bands, not so much near the center. Now, we are getting some bigger thunderstorms to wrap around the center now. So I have a hunch this is going to strengthen a little bit later on today. But at that point, it's moving away from us to the Gulf of Mexico. So, hey, we're looking a little bit better. So there's 3 different rain bands in particular we're watching. This is the first one that's moving into Palm Beach County. Still getting some decent lightning. Look at this cluster out here over the, I should say, that's part of the Bahamas for the most part. Still closer to Freeport than it is to West Palm Beach. And that's where that band is most likely to stay. This is the band that we're focusing on, which goes from about Pembroke Pines all the way down through downtown Miami, but it also extends offshore. We're going to have to watch out for some of this too, because I noticed a cluster of lightning. There's still a couple lightning strikes remaining. There was more than that earlier, which is telling me these thunderstorms are getting a little bit taller. They're a little bit more intense. We'll see if it maintains that intensity as it pushes closer to the coastline, because we've been waiting for the potential for maybe a water spout or two. There's a little bit of rotation. I see a little bit of a signal there showing up on radar. We don't show you this part of radar very often, but during tropical systems gives us a good idea where some potential rotation is. It's just nothing looks too impressive that we would get any tornado warnings in the short term, but that can always change in a hurry. So we'll be here to keep you updated if we see any signs on radar with that. Julie showed you the winds, still pushing onshore, which is causing the big problems in terms of this high tide, because that water is being funneled straight to the coast. Key West is now coming in from the south, so you're going to start to see that water rise, especially now that we're at high tide there in Key West, coming in on the Atlantic side. So far, the Bay side has been getting most of the water. And that's been the general thing with the storm, is that it was so close to going south of Key West, it would have put them on the dirty side of the storm, the side that has all the nasty weather on it. Since it passed north of Key West, conditions down here have been fairly calm. This is kind of the zone where we're getting the strongest of the winds. It moved through Key Largo, much of Miami-Dade, and up towards Broward, where we saw some wind gusts between 60 to 70 miles per hour earlier. So the main threat now is we're watching this high tide. This is on its way down. Even down towards the Keys, it should be on its way down too. And then we'll keep watching these rain bands at times today with plenty of dry breaks in between. Improving conditions finally on the way.